Hooklying bridge with adduction breathing drill. Hang with me here because there's a lot of pieces going on. Hang with me here because there's a lot of pieces going on, but I promise they're all really good. We're gonna start with your head. So I have my head up on a thinner yoga block. I could definitely use a pillow, something like that. The reason I'm doing that is so that when I try and bring my ribs down, that I don't end up crunching down. So I don't wanna bring my shoulders even more forward. And by giving myself a little bit more support here, I'm able to really kind of keep everything as it is, nice and open, because I know that I'm already a little bit more forward. So I need to just kind of meet myself where I'm at, and this helps me do that. You don't have to have your head on a block, but that really just kind of helps me by raising things up just a little bit, and it helps me kind of pull down less with these rectus muscles. Next thing I've got going on is a block for adduction. That just means that I am getting myself to use my inner thighs or my adductors while I'm doing this. The adductors can help to open the pelvic outlet slightly, and I also find that by getting some adductors on, it helps us to keep the glutes out of things, because we don't need our glutes to be squeezing in any part of this breathing drill. Make sure that you meet yourself where you're at with the adduction as well. You may need to put your yoga block on the wider part than the thinner part. So just make sure to meet yourself where you're at, because if you've got it really thin part and you're like, it's like really hard for me to feel my adductors, then use the wider way, okay? So meet yourself where you're at with that one. Now, the next part of this is the proximal hamstrings. You can see that I have my feet propped up on these two pads. You can use a couple of books, whatever. It does not have to be fancy, but what we're doing here is I'm making sure that my feet are like railroad tracks, okay? So I don't have my feet pointed out or pointed in. They are like railroad tracks, and I am pulling back on my heels just slightly. I'm making sure that my toes don't come up. I want to keep my toes down, but I pull back on those heels slightly, and when I pull back, I should start to feel some hamstrings turn on. What we want to feel are muscles in the back of the legs, and bonus points if we can get it a little more right here than up here. What we don't want is to only feel it behind our knees. So my goal for you is to feel it all kind of turning on in the back of the leg. So again, we've got our block and we're squeezing that. You want to squeeze it at like a 4 out of 10. This doesn't have to be anything crazy. And we're pulling back at like a 3 to 4 out of 10. So all of this, think of it as a strong, subtle engagement, okay? You're not like gripping and trying the hardest that you can, but we want to make sure that these muscles are working. So from here, we're going to use a low reach. So we've tilted slightly our pelvis up towards our rib cage. We've got some hamstrings on. We've got adductors on. We're going to take a nice long exhale. Ribs come down. Deep core comes up. You're going to take your hands and you're going to reach them slightly forward. When you reach, don't make sure you don't round, okay? We're just reaching forward. Palms are going to face the ceiling. So do your little checklist. Hamstrings, adductors, reach, ribs down. When you inhale, our goal here is anterior expansion, pump handle. We need to feel this part of our rib cage expand on an inhale. You may also feel your rib cage expand in the back, totally fine. But we want to make sure we feel from here up expanding the most on an inhale. If it feels more comfortable, you can also put a yoga block and rest your hands on the yoga block if you want a little more grounding that way, or you can put them on top of some books. Literally whatever works is totally fine. But your goal with this breathing drill is to make sure that you can get proximal hamstrings on. We're able to roll the pelvis up towards the rib cage without squeezing your butt. You can feel some adductors. You've got ribs down, deep core up. When you inhale, we don't want our core to expand more than our chest. It's okay if your core expands some, but I need your chest, your pump handle, to expand way more than what your core does. All right, that is your hook lying breathing drill.